That's me. You're probably wondering how I ended up in this situation.
We get along just fine here on our own. What you offering?
So, the Gripen C. Well, what makes the Gripen C special? To be honest, nothing really. But the combination of almost unlimited countermeasures, good airframe, so it's agile and has good turn rates, and it's literally not 14.7 makes it kind of good. In my opinion, it's one of the easiest planes to learn top tier. Also, in this case, top tier air arcade. And it's also in the tech tree that needs the least amount of RP to grind through. So the advantage of the almost unlimited countermeasures is in arcade or in any kind of threat situation, you literally put it in periodic countermeasure mode, as you see in the background, and forget about the countermeasures. Of course, you still need to notch if you already know how to do it, but yeah, it kinda is good. And if you don't know how to put it in the periodic countermeasure mode, let me show you real quick. Just go to your controls, just scroll down until you see fire countermeasures, and there's also periodic countermeasure release on off. So you have a button assigned for it, then it will automatically put the countermeasures out. You can also switch it to flare only. And of course also to chef only. And also with this little menu that you have, you can also pause it or activate it as well. So for me, to bring up this menu is the caps button, so the permanently, if you're typing permanently big letters button. Alright, then let's get into some gameplay, shall we? Also, just a small reminder, the Gripen C is a 13.7 plane, but if you put 2 reserve planes into the lineup, it will bring down the BR for aircade at least to 13.3. So in realistic battle it's of course 13.7 still, but in arcade it's 13.3, which gives you easier lobbies sometimes and worse planes. So based on what kind of map you get, there's 2 different strategies. Here of course you can change the countermeasure count. I've always put it so it's almost equal, so I just put it on periodic and then it will run out eventually. Also in arcade you can take a little more fuel. Make sure that your radar mode is on TWS and your search mode is also on the correct one. So on the bigger map, your basic strategy is basically going high and stay on your side of the enemy team. The RB99 of the Gripen is basically a M120B, which means it's of the range of around 30 kilometers. I would usually fire less than 30 kilometers. After I fire all my missiles at the enemies, I tend to take a little of a left turn to be already in a notching position, or almost, and I try to keep the radar lock on, or the TWS on the targets I fired at, because as long as I keep them there, the TWS will update the information for the missile where the target is. So here, of course, I need to notch, so just put your plane or the missile on the RWR on the left side, put it on a 90 clock position. And here I actually turn towards it because I'm fairly confident that it was fired so far away and cost so much energy to get to me that it's not gonna reach me. But this is more of a feeling thing. So the idea behind this plane is not to get the most kills, but to stay alive the longest. Because if you die, you cannot kill anyone else anymore. But if you stay alive, there will always be chances, especially in arcade, because your missiles will reload, right? So if the game goes 15 minutes and you survive 15 minutes, then eventually you're gonna get some kills. Here at the map I showed you that the sweet spot for you on a big map is basically on your side of the objectives, because then it's a lot easier to defend the enemies because you have all your teammates around you. Also, the periodic release of the countermeasures makes it harder for the enemies to lock you. Especially in 13.3, 13.7 and under, the radars tend to be not that strong, so it's much harder to lock onto you. Also, as soon as you kill some people, you're gonna notice in a minute there's one guy that is looking especially for me. So if you stay alive the longest and kill some people over and over again, the enemies are gonna get angry and try to chase you down. So take this into account. On a big map like this, if you go high, then you have to be really good at notching. But honestly, with this plane, it's the easiest to learn notching in general. A little tip right here, you see me chaffing out for no reason. This is because I've been low on chaff, and I try to get the reload timer going as soon as possible, because the RWR is not screaming at me, is not saying enemies fired at me, so I want to get it to reload so I can put it on periodic again. Right here you can see why flying high is such an advantage. I fired at him, he's at multipath level, but because the missile is on a top-down angle, it will basically go through the plane. Right here you can really see the enemy that's got a little bit angry because I've killed him a couple of times. And so for this, don't get stressed at all, try to dodge one missile at a time. If it's 5 or 6 out of a general equal direction, it is kind of easy to dodge them, in most cases. You see me later on dying to this because it's not a Fox 3 missile but a Fox 1, which basically means you don't want to dodge the missile but more the radar of the plane that is guiding the missile, which makes it a little bit harder to dodge, in my opinion. Here's a good example again, because he fired his whole missile arsenal at me, but since they come from a kind of similar direction, it is easier to notch all of them. Okay, so here now comes a tricky part. I got so sidetracked or distracted by the enemies, I actually ended up quite on their side of the map, which makes me vulnerable to be killed, much more vulnerable than when I'm on my team's side. Also, as a quick tip, if you take your loadout, don't forget to take also the IR missiles. If you don't know how to get rid of these and try to get the reload timer of your, let's say, M120s going, then there's a button that is assigning to drop the remaining missiles. Okay, so here comes the tricky part. He shot all of his missiles at me. You see, I tried to dodge all of them, but the ER, the guided one, gets me in the end. This will happen a lot of times if you kill multiple enemies over and over again, and we will see this in another game I've played as well. Here I try to guide the enemy missiles in again, and you see I get some kills out of that even on multipath height, because the TWS is giving constant updates to the missile where the target is flying at, right here as well. This is a top-down angle, and if the missile would have had enough energy, it would have killed him. This also works if you have the tracked PD on the target and if you keep the track. But if you change the radar mode, it will lose the initial guidance, or more the updating guidance on the target. So if you have it already in track mode, then leave it in track mode if it's a hard to get target for the missile. On this target you can see I keep on the track mode and it is notched right here, but it switches back to the target because of the updating from my plane's radar, but it sadly wasn't enough. But it will happen a lot of times that it is actually enough. And right here I get killed of a ER that is guided by the plane. I didn't pay much attention, this was also game 1 I've recorded. So in game 2 it's a much smaller map with mountains, so the strategy behind this is to not fly high, at least in the beginning, but to hide behind the mountains to evade the incoming missiles from the enemies. So here in the beginning, as everyone, I try to shoot all my missiles, but a key difference is I try to shoot them upwards. The more they go upwards, they will have a top-down angle and maybe go over some mountains or little mountains. Afterwards, as I said, I try to hide behind the mountains on the right side and wait for my reload timer. In this case, I actually try to take the sort of high ground or fly high. Because if I get high enough, I will be out of the view field of the enemies, and then I will basically have a free game top down on everybody. So let's see how this works out. Since this is the beginning of the match, I still try to take a very defensive position over my team spawn and also over my teammates. Right here you can see I have a nice top-down angle, so in this case my missiles go over most mountains from top-down, and so the enemies cannot really hide behind the mountains. So in this game the lobby actually died really quick, so it's not a very interesting game, but some stuff happens that is nice to know. So over here you see the enemy was behind or around this big mountain, but since I was on top of him basically, there was nowhere to go for him. And also a very nice trick is that most RWRs actually have a blind spot on the top and the bottom. So if the missile is coming from the top or the bottom, basically, the RWR will not alert them. So they will basically not know that a missile is coming. As you can also see, since the beginning of the match there hasn't been a single missile fired at me from the enemies. So you could say in some matches the positioning that you are taking, or basically in all matches, the position that you are taking is a huge advantage, no matter the plane. So here comes a nice trick again. If you try to lock up an enemy and then flip your plane around like this and fire when your belly is towards the enemy, the missile has a much easier time to reach the target, since it can basically turn out of the rails, which is especially important on the RB99 or the M120s, because those missiles tend to not turn as good as other Fox 3 missiles. But here you see 3 kilometers and the missile basically has no chance to get to the enemy. right here something happens that is not very common, honestly, also not for me. And this is I spin around the rocket to dodge it. So the inputs for this is basically I have all my inputs of the plane also on WASD. So what I did there was to hold A and W, so basically left, roll left and upwards. And this it gets you into a nice spin, which can sometime dodge in the last second or barely. But I would not recommend to rely on this as much. Right there, when I did this, it was basically a perfect misposition of myself. I was out of missiles and the enemy was turning towards me in a head-on, which I was about to lose because I was flying straight at him. So nothing really happens here, so I will just skip forward and then we can go to game 3. So game 3 is going to be an interesting one. It's also a small map with mountains, and on this side where I'm spawning, actually, I will show it with the cursor, there's a mountain where I can basically on repeat wrap around and fire missiles and be safe on my side, right there. I go around, fire my weapons, then I circle back around, or not like this, but much closer, and repeat. And this is also an interesting match because one guy in the enemy team is actually killing all my teammates really fast, which ends up in a interesting 1v4 situation in the end, which of course I didn't survive. So as always for the beginning of small maps or games on small maps, just fire all your missiles like everybody, but try to fire it towards the sky so it gets more of the top-down angle, and then go left or right and defend. For this map, in this spawn especially, the left side is really good because of this set mountain, which I can wrap around, my missiles will reload, then I will fire and wrap around the whole mountain again. So here I fired all my missiles, and now it's time to go around the mountain again to wait for the reloading of my missiles. And in the meantime I basically cannot get hit. also a small tip, keep your 110% thrust on your engine to actually either A, give the missile more energy, or B, to get out of the vulnerable spots. So right here I have no mountain afterwards to cover, so I should really try to save my WEP for this. So here I made actually a mistake. I shouldn't have done the full thrust 110% this early, because now I'm slow and I'm not behind the mountain and it almost gets me killed. But what saves me is actually a mountain, because missiles don't go through the mountains. Here now is a good example for I forgot to turn on my periodic countermeasures, but as soon as I hear a missile warning, so the RWR screaming at me, I turn it on immediately. So when I basically turn around to the right side, the notching is much easier, because I am already firing countermeasures out of the back. Now here I'm basically fucked, because it's an IR missile that is chasing me, but what saves me again is a mountain. So the missile is almost about to reach me, but since I am behind cover, the missile will just explode on the mountain. In this moment I also realized that there's the first enemies trying to chase me down, because they haven't been able to kill me before this. So this you will see now a repeating thing that's gonna happen, and in the end I have actually 4 people chasing me down, and until I get killed basically. Now, a second ago I noticed that he's gonna fire on top of me, so I don't spam my missiles and keep on flying, but I hide behind the mountain, because his missiles won't reach me that way. Here I did the roll thing again, which I don't think works out actually. And this right here is where you get killed. You basically never want to dogfight in arcade, because then you get slow. You don't have your 110% WEP all the time, and yeah, here I die because I try to reverse this guy and I'm slow and I get killed. So always try to not get into a situation where you have to do this. Right there on this situation I could have just flown right side to behind the next mountain, and I wouldn't have died. If an enemy is flying behind you like 2 kilometers out, I would recommend to, especially on this plane, just spam the flare button, because you have so many left. See, 260 left. And also reduce your afterburner. Don't put it on afterburner, and so the chance of you dodging the IR missile or the IR missile going after a flare is much higher. Right here I'm trying to lofty missile over the mountain. You see how I faced upwards towards the sky? Because the missile will have a much more top-down angle, as I explained earlier. I do this very frequently, and I think right here I wouldn't have gotten 1 or 2 kills out of it if I didn't do this. Right there I noticed that the enemy, one enemy got 15 kills, which means that my team is basically dying more quickly than their teams, because I'm on 11 kills and he's on 15, and this is basically gonna lead to the 4v1 in the end, because I basically have no teammates left. Now on my RWR I can see the M23, so this guy was chasing me and I didn't notice earlier. So I went around and thought it was only one guy, then the second guy pops up in the F20 and the third guy in the T2. So I'm like, at this situation I'm already completely fucked. I lost all my energy, I'm on 500 kilometers an hour. Then there's the MiG-23 as well, and this is basically my end, because my team has died basically completely and I have 4 enemies on me. I can dodge only so many bullets, even though this guy is actually didn't get me a long time, and here's my end. And now you can see my teammates, how they play, the very skilled teammates, which are also in your game, I guess. Isn't that beautiful? Well guys, thank you for your attention span, 32 minutes. I hope this was interesting and also some helpful tips that you could learn, and let me know in the comments if you want to see anything else. I think the next video will be the Gripen C in realistic mode. So thank you guys for watching and have a wonderful day.